Hello and welcome to the Cioindex Thought Leadership Series. Today's webinar, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, Helping Successful Leaders Get Even Better, describes the classic challenges that come with success in leadership. My name is Sonika and I am your host. Your presenter today is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Before we start, I just want to take a moment to go over some housekeeping rules. This webinar will last for about an hour. Dr. Goldsmith will present for 45 to 50 minutes, and the last 10 to 15 minutes will be spent answering any questions presented by you, the audience. Please note that the control panel is on the right side of your screen. You may communicate or submit your questions to me through the questions or chat buttons. During the webinar, should Dr. Goldsmith pose a question, please use the same buttons to send your response. Should you drop your connection, please dial back in, and in the unlikely event that our connection is dropped, please wait 5 minutes and then dial back in. Make sure that your microphone is on mute at all times. It is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Dr. Goldsmith has been recognized time and again as one of the top 10 most influential business thinkers in the world and the top-ranked executive coach at the 2013 Biennial Thinkers 50 ceremony in London. An author or editor of 35 books, which have sold over 2 million copies, been translated into 30 languages, Dr. Goldsmith's book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, is a New York Times bestseller, Wall Street Journal #1 business book, and the winner of Harold Longman Award for Business Book of the Year. So without further ado, I present to you Dr. Goldsmith.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I will briefly introduce myself and we will begin. My name is Marshall. I'm from a small town in Kentucky called Valley Station, Kentucky. Went to undergraduate school at a little engineering school, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. I got an MBA at Indiana University and a PhD at UCLA's Anderson School. I was a college professor and dean at Loyola when I was very young. And then for the last 38 years, I've done three things. One is I give talks or teach classes. This is what I love to do the most, speaking and teaching. And I travel all around the world doing that. Second, as was mentioned, I write and edit books and articles. And I also have a website. My website is www.marshallgoldsmith.com. Please visit my website. I give everything away. You can copy, share, download, duplicate, use all my materials in church, charity, nonprofit, modify it, use it any way that you wish. My attitude is we're all going to be equally dead here, so we might as well just do a little bit of good. So hopefully some of my material will be useful for you. You can use it any way you wish, and I love getting emails. If you send me an email, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. If you send me an email, I can't promise to get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you eventually. So I do like getting emails. Now, what are we going to be doing today? Well, before he died, I had the privilege of spending 50 days with Peter Drucker, the world's greatest authority on management. Peter Drucker said, we spend a lot of time helping leaders learn what to do. We do not spend enough time helping leaders learn what to stop. He said half of the leaders that I meet, they don't need to learn what to do. They need to learn what to stop. Well, that one comment from Peter Drucker led to my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and that's our first goal. How to use what to stop in leadership development and coaching. Second, I'm going to teach you an idea called feedforward, a very positive, upbeat way to develop ourselves and help others get better. Third, I'm going to share a proven model you can use to develop yourself as a leader, to coach others, and to build teams. And this is backed by research involving 86,000 people from around the world. And then I'm going to share some new research we're doing on employee engagement and talk about something called the daily question process and how you can use that to help change individual behavior, and also how it can be used to help increase employee engagement. So a lot of exciting new research I'm doing, and that's going to be in my next new book. It's called Triggers. Should be out in about February. Now, annoying habits that can hold us back. I was interviewed in the Harvard Business Review and asked a question. What is the #1 problem of all of those successful people you have worked with over the years? What is their #1 problem? And my answer, winning too much. What does that mean? If it's important, we want to win. Meaningful, we want to win. Critical, we want to win. trivial, we want to win, and not worth it, we want to win anyway. Winning too much. It's very hard for smart, successful people not to win. Now, if you're listening to this webinar, you are probably a winner in the game of life. You probably have a good job. You're well educated. You're a winner. It's hard for winners not to constantly win. Now, I'm going to give you a case study of winning too much that almost all of my successful clients fail. And almost all of you will fail this case study. And when I say fail, you will fail yourself. Here is the case study. You want to go to dinner at restaurant X. Your husband, wife, partner, friend, or significant other wants to go to dinner at restaurant Y. Have a heated argument. You go to restaurant Y. It's not your choice. The food tastes awful. The service is terrible. Option A, critique the food. Point out our partner was wrong. This mistake could have been avoided had only you listened to me, me, me. Option B, shut up. Eat the stupid food. Try to enjoy it and have a nice evening. What would I do? What should I do? Almost all my clients, what would I do? Critique the food. What should I do? Shut up. Well, as bad as that case study is, I'm now going to give you a second case study that's even worse. And my guess is half the people listening to me have made this mistake. You have a hard day at work, a hard day. You go home. Your husband, wife, friend, or partner's there, and the other person says, I had such a hard day today. I had such a tough day today. And we reply, you had a hard day. You had a hard day. Do you have any idea what I had to put up with today? You think you had a hard day? We are so competitive, we have to prove we are more miserable than the people we live with. I gave this example at a class I was teaching at the Dartmouth Tuck School of Business. A young man in the back raised his hand and said, I did that last week. I asked him, what happened? He said, my wife looked at me and said, honey, you just think you've had a hard day. It's not over. Well, I love getting emails. And I got an email about 6 months ago that made my whole week. A gentleman sent me an email and he said, you know, I just want to send you an email and say thank you. I know you don't remember me, but he said, I was in your class about 5 years ago, and I just wanted to send an email and say thank you. He said, yesterday my wife was having a terrible day. And she called me up and was talking about what a bad day she'd had. I was just getting ready to point out how her problems paled in significance to my own. And for some reason, I realized what she taught me 5 years ago. I just stopped and listened, and I said, you know, thank you for all the sacrifices you made for the family. I love you. He said, I took $25 and I bought her some flowers. And I went home and gave her the flowers and said, thank you for all that you've done. I love you. He said it was the best $25 I've ever spent. Thank you very much. Well, the next time we get into that mode of I have to win and I have to prove I'm right, take a deep breath and ask a question. Exactly what am I winning? What am I winning here? Now, the next classic issue, adding too much value. And my guess is, if you're listening to me, you have probably a technical background, engineering, IT, something along those lines. This is a classic problem with people that have technical backgrounds. What does adding too much value mean? I'm young, smart, enthusiastic. I come to you with an idea. You're my manager. You think it's a great idea. Rather than just saying great idea, our natural tendency is to say, that is a nice idea. Why don't you add this to it? The problem is the quality of the idea may go up 5%. My commitment to execute the idea may go down 50%. It's no longer my idea. Now it's your idea. Incredibly difficult for smart, successful people, especially those with technical backgrounds, not to constantly add value. One of my good coaching clients retired about 8 years ago is named J.P. Garnier. J.P. was the CEO of a very large drug company, GlaxoSmithKline. I asked J.P., what did you learn about leadership as the CEO of this huge company? He said, I learned a very hard lesson. My suggestions become orders. My suggestions become orders. He said, if they're smart, they're orders. If they're stupid, they're orders. If I want them to be orders, they are orders. And if I do not want them to be orders, they're orders anyway. My suggestions become orders. I asked JP, what did you learn from me when I was your executive coach that helped you the most? He said, you know, you taught me one idea that helped me be a better leader, and and have a happier life. I asked him, what was that idea? He said, before I speak, stop and breathe and ask myself one question. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And he said, as the CEO of this huge company, 50% of the time, if I have the discipline to stop it and breathe and ask myself, is it worth it? What do I decide? Am I right? Maybe. Is it worth it? No. Now, when you're listening to me now, take a deep breath. I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever attempted to prove someone you love was wrong on a minor or insignificant point and prove you were right? Was it worth it? If you have teenage kids, do you ever have the teenage kid need to prove they're wrong on a minor, insignificant point? How'd that work out for you? Well, before we talk, just breathe and ask myself, is my comment going to improve this person's commitment? The answer is no. Breathe again. Do I really need to say it? And as JP said, if you have to ask at work, half the time it's not worth saying. When you have to ask at home, it's almost never worth saying. Next annoying habit that can hold us back, passing too much judgment. Now, more good news about everything I'm teaching you today. It all applies at work, and it all applies at home. 4 words probably help you be a better coach at work and a better family member at home. What are these 4 simple words? Help more, judge less. Help more and judge less. How many of us have friends and family members that might be happy if we helped just a tad more and we judged a little less? What are the odds anybody's going to complain a year from today because they missed the judgmental you? Very, very unlikely. So good at work, good at home. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What % of all interpersonal communication time is spent on A, people talking about how smart, special, or wonderful they are, or listening to someone do this, plus B, people talking about how stupid, inept, or bad someone else is, or listening to someone do that? I would like you to take A plus B divided by all interpersonal communication time and come up with one percentage number. 0 would be none, 100% would be all. Now, obviously, there's not a, quote, right answer. There's not some God up in the sky counting comments. But there is an average answer. I've asked over 100,000 people around the world this question. Give me a guess, and we'll see how your guess compares with the average score in the world. Well, the average score in the world on this is right around 65%. And what's amazing, it doesn't matter what country I'm in. India, China, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, South America. The number is very, very consistent around the world. It's right about 65%. Now, nobody knows exactly what that number is, but everyone agrees it's a big number. Now, my guess is, given pressures of work and home and changes in technology that are occurring faster than ever, and emails and voicemails and global competition, you probably feel about as busy today or busier today as you've felt your whole life. I'm now going to give you a productivity enhancement tool for yourself and for your teams. What is that tool? Reduce that number. Reduce that number. How much do I learn talking about how smart, special, wonderful I am? Nothing. Or listening to people do that? Nothing. And how much do I learn talking about how stupid, inept, or dumb somebody else is? Nothing. And listening to that? Nothing. And what % of all communication time is wasted on that according to the world? Right about 65. So reduce that number, life gets a little bit better. Now, how do you reduce that number? I'm now going to teach you a totally counterintuitive, shockingly effective tool to help people change behavior. This is called using small amounts of money, tiny little amounts of money, to create large changes in behavior. And it's amazing how well it works and very counterintuitive. Now, when I coach executives, would you guess most of the people I'm coaching, women or men? Well, over the years, mostly men. Younger or older? Well, generally a little bit older. Poor or rich? Mostly very rich. Most people I've been coaching over the years, a bunch of old rich men. Now, there's a common misperception about old rich men. Some people believe old rich men would not mind losing tiny little amounts of money. That would be wrong. Rich old men hate losing any money. Watch them play golf. They play golf for $5. They lie, they cheat, they swear at each other. They just hate losing. Now, it is shocking how well this technique works. And we're going to begin with something called destructive comments. Destructive comments, those unnecessary, nasty little comments about our coworkers. Now, I'm sure you probably work in an organization that preaches the following sermon. We want to create an environment where people reach out across the organization. We want to build positive, synergistic, win-win relationships. Do we like those silos? No, we should tear down those bad silos. Well, everybody preaches this same sermon. What happens to all this corporate happy talk, though, when we stab our coworkers in the back? Well, this doesn't make things better. It makes things a little bit worse. This is a bad, bad habit. Now, I don't want to look like I'm preaching at you. I also get feedback. And if you read my bio, as you mentioned, I won so many fancy awards. Well, none of those fancy awards came from my staff. And certainly none of those fancy awards came from my family. In fact, my daughter Kelly was 14 years old. She goes, Wall Street Journal, top 10 consultant in the world. She said, Daddy, I want to be in your field. I said, Kelly, that makes our low. I tried to get and we are used to begin with her general favorite. And you know, finally, like general like and then the stuff like that in bed money for paper. And that was they come. I'm having to make some years. I don't really talk this part. They don't follow this. And it's bad for people. It was future. And it's people you just be on them from you. Now, I've had thousands of people do this. I get some really funny answers. One guy sent a text message to his wife, and she sent a note back and said, who has stolen the cell phone of my husband? I did another one. The woman sent a note back, are you dying? So it's very interesting to see the reaction you get when you ask that question. Now, why don't we ask? We don't ask how we can improve at work. My friend Jim Kouzes, leadership profile study, 70,000 people. What item comes in dead last? Ask for input about how he or she can improve. And at home, we ask even less. Why don't we ask? The deep reason we do not ask the question is we're afraid of the answer. We don't ask the question because we're afraid of the answer. Little challenge, get in the habit of asking that question, how can I be a better? Not only at work, even more important at home. When my two children, Kelly and Brian, were 11 and 9, I decided I'd practice this at home. I started asking my children a question, what can I do to be a better father? The problem with asking a question is you get an answer. My daughter Kelly's 11. She said, Daddy, you travel a lot. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me is the way you act when you come home. You talk on the telephone, you watch sports, you don't spend much time with me. And she said, one time it was Saturday, and I wanted to go to a party at my friend's house, and Mommy didn't let me go. I had to stay home and spend time with you. And you spent no time with me. Well, that wasn't right. What could I say? Thank you. I said, Daddy's going to do better. I started keeping track of how many days I could spend 4 hours with my family. 1991, 92 days. 1992, 110 days. 1993, 131. 1994, 135. I made more money the year I spent 135 days, 4 hours with my family, than the year I spent 20 days. What did I learn? The San Diego Chargers don't really care about me. It took me a while to figure that out. Well, get in the habit of asking, how can I be a better son, daughter, parent, husband, wife, friend, boss? And after we ask, we set up an expectation. Maybe those people should listen. And when we ask for input, the first thing we want to do is typically the last thing we should do. What's that? Ask for input, then express my opinion. If I ask you for input and immediately start expressing my opinion, what's that sound like? Defensiveness, denial, rationalization, making excuses. Fight the urge to make excuses and just listen. Now, the next thing is think. Think. Now, who is the greatest leader I've ever met? I've had the privilege of working with so many wonderful leaders. One of the greatest leaders I've ever met is a woman named Frances Hesselbein. Peter Drucker said, Frances Hesselbein is the greatest executive he ever met. Alan Mulally, the CEO of Ford. Frances Hesselbein, the greatest leader I ever met. Frances Hesselbein, really a great woman, dedicated, hardworking, CEO of the Girl Scouts of America for 14 years, winner of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest award you can give a United States civilian. I got to go to the White House and watch President Clinton give her this award. She's pretty and she travels all the time, and she's 99 years old. She's a wonderful woman. She does one thing before she speaks that almost none of us do. What is it? Think. What do most of us do when we get feedback? What do most of us do when we get angry? She stop and breathe and think not only what am I going to say, but how am I going to say it? Difficult at work? Even more difficult at home. Get in that habit of thinking before we talk. Personal example, several years ago I was in a monastery with a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. We were encouraged to meditate on a variety of topics, and one day the topic was anger. He said, think to a time in your life when you became angry and lost control of your behavior, and we will analyze who was responsible for what happened. I came up with a case study involving my daughter Kelly. And I'm very proud of my daughter Kelly. She's a graduate of Duke University on the TV show Survivor Africa. If you saw the third season of Survivor, she was on Survivor. She worked with Mark Burnett, the famous reality TV producer, for 2 years, doing casting for Survivor, Amazing Race. Went on to get a PhD at Yale University, and now she's a professor of marketing at the #1 ranked Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. So Daddy's very proud. Just got ranked as one of the 8 top business school professors in the world under 40. Well, when she was 14, she did something Daddy wasn't so thrilled with. And my daughter was a pioneer in the world of navel rings. Yes, she was the first girl in her school to acquire a large and brightly colored navel ring, and there's no use having a navel ring if nobody can see it. So she got a sleazy outfit to highlight the navel ring. Daddy comes home and sees this navel ring and sleazy outfit. I reacted with something less than wild enthusiasm, yelling, screaming, ranting, raving. In my little monastery, I meditated upon that event, and I thought, what was I thinking of? First thought, her walking down the street and somebody saying, what a cheap-looking kid. I wonder who her father is. Second thought, even worse, my own friends. I'm amazed, Marshall, that his daughter looked this way. Who was I concerned about here, her or me? Me. Who was the biggest problem, her navel ring or my ego? My ego. If I had to do it over, I would have still said get rid of the navel ring, but I didn't have to yell and scream and act like an idiot. A great learning point from Francis Hesselbein. Why should I be entrusted to control anything else if I cannot control myself? If you get angry, you get out of control, look in the mirror and realize one thing. When I lose control, where's the problem? It's no longer out there. It's now in here. Ask, listen, think, and the next thing is thank people. And don't punish the messenger. Don't punish people who are trying to tell us the truth. And everyone says, oh, yeah, we should encourage honest input. We want people to tell the truth. We want people to express their opinion. Let's talk. It's not so easy to do. We don't like it when people give us negative input. And you're probably thinking, yes, I see other people punish the messenger. Not me. Let me give you a case study on this and see how you did. You go home after a hard day at work. Your husband, wife, friend, or partner's there. You get in the car to go to the store. You're driving to the store. Lots of traffic. Cars are cutting in front of you. You drive a little further. That person in the front seat goes, look out, there's a red light up ahead. Did you say thank you? Or did you say something that sounded a little more like, what do you mean there's a red light ahead? Don't you think I can see? I know how to drive this car. Why don't you be quiet and let me drive? Well, unfortunately, most of us tend to choose plan B on that scenario. What was the cost of the person saying, hey, there's a red light ahead? Nothing. What could that have saved? Their life, your life, and the lives of other innocent people. Somebody gives us something that has a fantastic potential benefit and costs nothing. What should we say to this good person? Thank you. Thank you. Well, next time you're driving along, that person corrects your driving, just go, thank you. Very easy to say in theory, very hard to do in practice. Now I'm going to give you a positive and negative case study about ego and asking for input. And by the way, why do we yell and scream at that person? Pride and ego. Too much pride and too much ego. And do we pay the price later for that prideful and egotistical outburst? Oh, yeah. Happy price or sad price? Sad. Smart or stupid? Stupid. Pride and ego. Now, let me give you 2 examples, a positive and a negative. First, the negative. There's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto, published by Dr. Atul Gawande at Harvard Medical School. In this book, Dr. Gawande makes a very, very fascinating point. If you go in for a surgery, and the doctor is asked a series of very simple questions before the surgery by the nurse, the odds on unneeded infection plummet, and the death rate because of unnecessary infection is cut by about 2/3. The huge majority of hospitals around the world, they don't let the nurse ask the doctor the questions. Why? The doctor's ego is too big. According to Dr. Gawande, more people have died because of the egos of medical doctors and died in the Vietnam War and the Afghan War and the Iraqi War put together. That's a negative case study. Positive case study, every year I train animals for 9 years for the U.S. Navy. They don't give me any money, but they give me treats. About 4 or 5 years ago, my day in a nuclear submarine. Me and a bunch of old men got to stand out there at the top of the submarine and go dive down and pretend to torpedo things. We had such a big time. Then a few years later, my treat was even better. Where'd I get to go? I went to the danger zone. Yes, if you've seen that movie, Top Gun, I got to spend 95 minutes on a U.S. Navy Top Gun fighter jet. Well, before we take off, I noticed this kid is asking my host, Admiral Mark Guadagnini, a series of questions from a checklist. These weren't tricky questions. First question for the doctor, did you wash your hands? First question for that pilot, how much fuel do you have? I said to my friend, Admiral Mark, this is puzzling. The doctor don't like the nurse asking the question because their ego's too big. I said, no offense, sir. Nobody in the world's got a bigger ego than the United States Navy Top Gun fighter jet pilot who becomes an admiral. You get the biggest ego in the world. Why don't you care the kid asks you the question? What's the difference? He looked at me and said, there's a huge difference. That operation crashes, you die. That plane crashes, I die. Well, how important is ego and how important is pride? Every day we make it more important than health and safety and the people we love. Once we get over that, life gets a little better. Now, the next step in our model is respond to feedback. And if we look at this concept of responding to feedback, I'm a pioneer in that world of 360-degree feedback, and I use 360-degree feedback in my coaching. That's it. Confidential feedback from our direct reports, peers, bosses. And everyone I coach that gets feedback, I teach them to say something that sounds like this. You know, I'm going through this 360-degree feedback process, and the first thing I want to say is thank you very much for participating. I don't know who said what. I know a lot of people took the time to help me, and I want to say how grateful I am. Second, much of my feedback is positive, ethical, dedicated, hardworking, caring about the company and customer, and creative and innovative, and getting results, and having good values and high integrity. These are important things to me. I hope it's where I did. I just want to say how grateful I am for the good feedback. And don't say but. Say, and there's something I'd like to do better. And my advice is pick one thing, and whatever that one thing is, have it come from your heart. For example, I want to be a better listener. If I've not listened to you or the other people around you in the past, I'm sorry. Please accept my apologies. If I make a mistake, what should I do? Who should I blame? Blame myself. And I should apologize. We all make mistakes, and we should lead by example and admit them. Then the next part you're going to like, don't ask for more feedback about the past. Ask for ideas for the future. I'd say, Mr. Direct Report, I'm not going to ask you for feedback about the past. I can't change that. I'd try feedforward. Give me some ideas how I could be a more positive and open-minded listener in the future. Whatever the person says, sit there, shut up, listen, take notes, and say thank you. Never promise to do everything your direct reports say. Leadership's never a popularity contest. I'd say I can't promise to do everything you and everybody say, but I'm going to listen to everybody and think of the ideas and do what I can. Can't change the past. Can change the future. Can't get better at everything. Can certainly get better at one thing. Then involve that person. Say, I'm going to involve you and help you. Ask you to help me get better. If you want to achieve any successful behavioral changes, simple steps. Set a clear goal. Write down the goal. Publicly state the goal. And involve a support group in helping you achieve the goal. You'll be much more likely to achieve any goal. This is exactly what I do with my coaching people. And then change. I had been in business for 12 years before anybody asked me a great question. What was a great question? Does anybody ever really change? I looked at this gentleman. I said, I have an undergraduate degree in mathematics, 12 years experience, PhD in organizational behavior. My answer is, I don't know. I have no research. I can't prove it, so I guess I don't know. For 25 years, I've been answering this question. Now I do know. I know who changes, who doesn't change, why people change, and why people do not change. The key to making change last is you have to follow up and stick with it. What does follow-up sound like? Mr. Coworker, you know, 2 months ago I said I wanted to be a more positive and open-minded listener. Based on the last 2 months, give me some ideas, tell me for the next 2. It's been 4 months. Based on the last 2 months, give me some ideas, tell me for the next 2 months. It's been 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. What happens if you do this very simple follow-up like I just described? I'm going to answer this not from a theory point of view, but from a research point of view. Our study is called Leadership as a Contact Sport. And by the way, if you want a copy of this, send me an email, marshall@goldsmith.com. I'll send you the original research. 86,000 participants. This is validated across culture, across industry, and across every level of management. What do we learn in our research? Every leader got multi-rater feedback. They were asked to talk with a consultant, pick one or two things to improve, talk to people about what they learned, and follow up just like I described. And then we did a mini survey to measure, has this person become a more effective leader, not based on their own opinion, but based on their colleagues. What did we learn? A year later, table 1, 5 companies ask exactly the same question. Has your leader become has your coworker become a more effective leader? Table 1, when people said no follow-up, if you look at that scale, -3 to +3, -3 less effective, 0 didn't change, +3 more effective. If you understand probability and statistics, that looks slightly better than a normal distribution curve. I've done a control group study. No training, no feedback, no nothing. The control group did this well. Total waste of time. Might as well have been watching a sitcom. People said a little follow-up, a little better. Some follow-up, a lot better. Frequent follow-up, much better. Consistent or periodic follow-up, massive improvement. They all went to the same program. It's taught by the same person, me. Got feedback on the same process at the same time. What did I learn? Well, what I just taught you over the last 45 minutes works. Shockingly, it doesn't work if you don't do it. It works. It doesn't work if you don't do it. And our key challenge in life is not understanding it. Our key challenge in life is doing it. Now, I'm going to finish by sharing, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, I'm going to finish by sharing some new work I'm doing on something called the daily question process, and then invite you to participate in a study if you'd like. The daily question process is something I do every day to keep stuff in my mind. Every day I have a woman call me up on the phone. She listens to me read 32 questions that I wrote and provide 32 answers that I wrote every day. Somebody asked me, why do you pay somebody to do this every day? Don't you know the theory about how to change behavior? I wrote the theory about how to change behavior. That's why I do it every day. I know how hard it is. I have 11 million frequent flyer miles on one airline. That's a good excuse to be an alcoholic or an excuse to be divorced or an excuse to be out of shape. Those excuses don't matter. It's hard for you, it's hard for me, it's hard for any of us to change behavior. Now, how does this daily question process work? Well, I'm going to share some of my questions, but mine are not intended to be yours. The idea of the exercise is you write your own questions. Some of my questions include, how many times yesterday did you try to prove you were right when it wasn't worth it? How many angry or destructive comments did you make about people yesterday? How many minutes did you walk? How many push-ups did you do? How many sit-ups? Did you say or do something nice for your wife or your son or your daughter? How many minutes did you write? Are you updated with your coaching clients? Just a bunch of questions about life. If you'd like them all, send me an email. I'll send them all to you. My friend Jim Moore does this and will tell you this saved his life. It didn't kind of save his life or sort of save his life. It did save his life. One of his questions is, are you currently updated on your physical exam? He said no the first 90 days he did this. After 90 days, he said, this is embarrassing. I got to get the stupid exam or quit asking the question. He got the exam. The doctor said, you have cancer. Now, my friend's going to be fine. That was years ago. The doctor also said, had you waited 7 more months, you'd be dead. He knew he should have got a physical exam. He was 65 years old, chief learning officer of 3 multi-billion-dollar companies. He knew he should have done it, but he didn't do it. If you hold this mirror up in front of your face every day, you know what you learn? It's not easy to do. I'm sure you work in a company that has some values plaque on the wall with fancy words like integrity and customer and some such things. And they're all nice words. Those aren't real values. Those are talk values. If you want to know what your real values are, get out an Excel spreadsheet. On one column, you write a list of questions that represent what you want to do every day. Then every day, you fill out that form. Every question is answered with a yes, a no, or a number. At the end of the week, your scores are automatically calculated. I'll warn you in advance. That picture you see at the end of the week is not going to be as pretty as that values plaque up on the wall. You learn life is real easy to talk and much tougher to live. Now, my daughter Kelly taught me something called active questions, which is changing the whole way I look at my own questions. And she taught me to ask questions instead of a passive question. For example, do you have clear goals? An active question, did you do your best to set clear goals? And we've come up with 6 active questions. I'm going to challenge yourself. Ask yourself these 6 questions every day. And they all start with, did I do my best to? Did I do my best to? Number 1, set clear goals. Number 2, make progress toward goal achievement. Number 3, build positive relationships. Number 4, be happy. Number 5, find meaning. And number 6, be fully engaged. Did I do my best to do these things every day? And we've been doing research on this, and you're all invited to participate. If you want to participate in our research, just send me an email, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com, and I'll sign you up for a 2-week study. You get an email every day for 2 weeks, and you're going to be asked these same 6 questions. And then you get studies before and after. Did things get better? What did we learn? So far, we've had about 54 studies, 2,537 participants. 37% of the people who participated in our research said, 2 weeks later, I'm better at everything. I feel happier. My life seems more meaningful. Setting better goals. 65% said I got better on at least 4 of the items. 89% said I got better on at least 1. And something like 0.5% said they got worse. Why? Every day, these 6 questions get us to focus not on what we cannot do. Every day, they get us to focus on what we can do. Now, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to say, do we have any questions?
Thank you, Marshall, for that very interesting presentation. We have a few questions. I'm going to start with one that focused when you spoke about your research. It showed that leaders who do consistent follow-up are clearly perceived as increasing in leadership effectiveness. Is that because they really change their behavior, or are they perceived as such because they do this follow-up?
Excellent question. And the answer to that question is the opposite of what you might think. It is much easier to change behavior than it is to change perception. One of the best research principles in psychology is called cognitive dissonance theory. We all view people in a manner that's consistent with our stereotype. The reason follow-up is important is it helps not only change behavior but perception. Let's say you want to get better at not making destructive comments. I picked that because it sounds so simple. But you might think I don't need to talk to people or follow up. Not so much. Here's why that doesn't work. I'm your coworker. You go 7 months and never make a bad comment about anyone. 7 months later you say, stupid SOBs in finance, idiot bean counters. I hear you. My reaction is she's never changed. Situation B, you talk to me. Coworker Marshall, I want to do a great job of being a team player, not make destructive comments. I may not believe you're going to change, but I kind of listen. 2 months later you come back. It's been 2 months. I've been trying to be a great team player, not destructive. Give me some ideas on how I can do better in the future. Now I think about it. I say, you've done a great job. Keep it up. It's been 4 months. Great job. Keep it up. 6 months. You know, I didn't really think you've changed, but you've really done a fine job. Keep it up. 7 months. Stupid SOBs in finance. I say, you shouldn't have said that. You went 7 months without making that mistake. Then you say, you're right. I'm going to apologize to the team. Situation A, did behavior change? Yes. Did perception change? No. Situation B, did behavior change? Yes. Did perception change? Yes. In leadership, it doesn't matter what we say. All that matters is what they hear. Next question.
So, Marshall, I do not have direct line authority. How do you think that I could do a great job of influencing people?
Well, the wonderful Peter Drucker taught me a lesson on this. He said, and if you just learn this lesson, you're going to be better at influencing people and have a happier rest of your life. Every decision in the world is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Make peace with that. Not the best person or the smartest person or the right person or a good person. It's made by that person. Very few of us ever make peace with this. We go through life thinking it's not fair, it's not right, poor me. How could an idiot like that get promoted? Well, Peter Drucker said the decision maker is the decision maker. Decisions are made based on only one variable, power. You have the power to make the decision, you're going to make it. If I need to influence another person and I don't have line authority and they have the power and they're the decision maker, one word to define them, customer, one word to define myself, salesperson. It's not really their job to buy, it's my job to sell. And to make a positive difference, what do we need to learn how to do? Sell what you can sell. If you can sell it, sell it. If you can't sell it, take a deep breath and then let it go. Next question.
Marshall, the next question comes from one of our audience members whose corporation has just merged with another. And he or she is leading a unit which is going to have some layoffs. And he himself is feeling rather demoralized. So during this transition period, how does he lead his team with enthusiasm when, he himself is so demoralized?
Not easy to start with. So the first thing is, I think it's very healthy that this question is being asked. It's very healthy that the person recognizes how difficult it is. I'm going to give you an example I use with all of my CEO clients. And I think the example applies to many of us in all kinds of settings. When they get kind of down and out, I say, have you ever been to a Broadway play? Of course, they all have. I said, well, a kid gets out there night after night. Do you ever hear the kids say, my foot hurts, and I've got a headache, and I don't feel good? No. It's showtime. Well, I think a healthy attitude is, it's showtime. You got to be upbeat. You got to be positive. And that's not being a phony. That's being a professional. I was with my friend Alan Mullally after 9/11, a total disaster where people, they took the products that he loved and used them to kill Americans. And he still had to be the leader right after that, and he had to lead his group. He had to be up and positive and say, we can bring this back. Well, a healthy attitude toward that stuff is, it's showtime. I am up, I'm positive, I'm going to do my best. Whatever happens, happens. Look for another job, maybe you should. But while you're there, as long as you're cashing the check, give it your best shot.
Marshall, would you be able to please highlight some fundamental principles in organizational transformation and change management?
Yes. In terms of change management or organizational transformation, I'm often asked, can you get true change without the support of the CEO? And the answer is yes, as long as you get the support of the top-line management and it's not sabotaged by those from above. So you can have an organizational transformation at any level if it starts with the leadership at that level and it's not sabotaged by above. That's point number one. Point number two is I'm only an expert at changing behavior, not at strategy. Point number two, in terms of achieving transformational behavioral change, same principle. You start at the top. The leader gets feedback. The leader picks what he or she wants to improve. Then you go to the next level. They get feedback. They pick what they want to improve. Everybody focuses on their improvement. And you start from that top down. The leaders get the feedback. They try to get better. So everybody starts behaving in a way that's consistent with the transformed new values of the organization. Next question.
We just have time for one more question. Marshall, would you be able to give some tips on being a good delegator?
Yes. Being a great delegator, key point, don't delegate more effectively. So I like the term good delegator, not more delegator. Sometimes people say delegation is good. Delegation is not always good. You delegate to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, you're not helping anyone. How do you become a more effective delegator? Have a one-on-one dialogue with each of your direct reports and ask a couple of questions. One, let's look at each specific task that you're working on or each key area of responsibility. Question number one, within that task, are there areas where you think I get maybe too involved, more involved than I need to be? What would they be? Then number two, ask, are there areas where I may need to get more involved? You need more help. Because you don't want to delegate just to delegate. You want to delegate where the person feels they can carry the ball themselves. You don't have to agree, but you listen. Then you say, look at my role as a leader. Do you ever see me doing things at my level that I don't have to be doing, that other people can do instead of me? Because if you want to do a better job of delegating, it could mean that you overmanage the people who report to you, but it could mean you don't overmanage them at all. They just see you doing stuff at your level you don't need to be doing. Both of those are signs of areas for improvement in delegation. I think it's healthy to deal with both. One, analyze each area of responsibility and your level of involvement and making sure you're getting the right balance between help on one hand and let go on the other. And then look at yourself and say, what am I doing that I can let go of that perhaps other people can take care of that I can delegate to them?
Well, that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you so much, Marshall, and thank you once again to our audience for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed the webinar. Your feedback is appreciated as we continually strive to improve upon what we deliver to our members. You may send your feedback to our webmaster. For upcoming webinars, please visit our events page on cioindex.com. If you have missed any of the previous webinars in this series, or if you would like to revisit them, you may access the recordings at our events page on Cioindex under archived events. Thank you once again for joining us today. You may exit the webinar by simply clicking the X on your control panel or choosing File then Exit. Thank you and have a great day.